Welcome back to Clarity Convos for Wedding Pros Podcast. I'm your host, Aislinn, and today we have a very, very special episode. I have one of my favorite people in the entire world on the podcast. Rachel, please say hello.
Hi, I'm Rachel, or I also go by Ray. I'm the owner of Nicole events and also the FAB CEO. I'm so excited to be here.
I am excited. I can't believe we haven't done a podcast episode together, to be honest.
I know. It's definitely been something that has needed to be in the works.
Yeah. So if you guys have never met Rachel before, she and I have been friends for like 15 years, I think, at this point. I don't even know how long I've known you, but it's been a long time.
Yeah.
Yeah. We've also been blessed to work together in so many different ways over the years. When I was a wedding photographer and she had her wedding planning company, we worked together in that space. We've also done other types of educational things together. So it's really cool to have you on the podcast today.
I'm so excited. I'm so excited that I get to be here because I've just loved watching your evolution from wedding photographer to luxury wedding photographer to now incredible boss babe, just killing it with coaching, amazing, just everything you do. So I'm excited to be here.
Well, if you're listening to this episode, you are in for a treat because we are going to be talking about alignment in business, which both Rachel and I have a lot of experience with. But I'm really excited to just kind of like dig right into it. So I love this topic of alignment. Can you define what that means to you? And especially like what it means as like an aligned business?
Totally. So I'm so passionate about this because I have lived in a world where I've worked for people and businesses that do not feel aligned for me. And I've also created a business that didn't feel aligned with me as I got more involved in that business. And it just became so empowering and powerful for me when I built a business that felt aligned to my dream lifestyle and goals. And it became this sort of like a mantra and thing that I had to go out and teach women how to do. So when I think of an aligned business, I think of not only a business that's successful financially and hitting all your goals, but a business that actually aligns with the lifestyle that you want to live. So a business where you feel good, a business that feels like you're coming home to it every time you step into it. Like you're on vacation when you're in your business. You're not escaping your business to go on vacation, right?
Yes.
So yeah, it's just that space where you get to like uniquely and authentically show up as you and shine in that space.
Yeah, I love that you said that it feels like you are on vacation every single day in your business because I am in a season where that's exactly how I feel. And I feel like you would probably agree that you're in a season like that as well.
100%. Absolutely.
Yeah. So a lot of entrepreneurs like really struggle with this. They really, really struggle with like their business being based on like the expectations of others. They also just like really struggle with the idea of an aligned business because they don't even know what that means for them. So if someone's listening to this and that like resonates with them, they're like, oh no, I really do want an aligned business, but I know that I'm not in it right now. How can they create a business that is driven by their sole purpose?
Yeah. I mean, what I would first start with saying is like, it's okay. And I think that people put this pressure, especially women, we put this pressure on ourselves to have this perfect outlook and this perfect output into the world. And so we create these businesses and these images of ourselves based on the expectations of other people. And then we start to get really exhausted with it. But the thing is, you should applaud yourself. You should stop and celebrate the fact that you got your business to where it's at. So at first I would say, congratulations. Look at you and look how successful you are, right? Because you're doing the hard thing. You're doing the thing that you probably never thought you would do, and you took the leap to build that. More often than not, what happened is perhaps your business got more successful or your side hustle got really, really rapidly successful and you weren't expecting it to, and you're just kind of playing a little bit of catch up. So you're sort of in this space where you're chasing to build the strategy to catch up to where you're at. And what I would say is go ahead and pause. Stop trying to run and chase and play catch up and build the strategy to catch up to all of this incredible goodness. Because what will happen is you'll start to build inauthentically. So go ahead and pause and actually start looking at what is my vision for how I want to live in my higher self? How do I actually want to show up every single day in my life? Do I really want to wake up at 5 a.m? And if you do, that's great. More power to you because I am not a morning person. I think you do that. I think you wake up at 5 a.m.
I do. I naturally wake up at 5 in the morning. It's not even forced at this point.
for you. I have a son, and it's probably the best thing that ever happened to me to become a morning person. But like, if it wasn't for him, I'd probably be waking up at like 9 a.m. So, just things like that. Do I actually want to wake up at 5 a.m. or have I been told that that's like the CEO move? And there's nothing wrong with either way. Or do I want to have slow early mornings that start at 8 o'clock? Do I want to hit the ground running? Do I want to do emails? Do I actually want to just sit in my creative space? Like, how do you want to live each day in your business and show up as yourself? And then start building the strategy and structure in your business that supports that. So
Yeah.
I have an example if you'll let me spin on it.
Yeah, definitely. I want to hear more of this.
Okay. So I don't know if you've ever seen the movie The Intern.
It's been a long time.
Okay, I know. It's an older movie, but it's so cute, and I love Anne Hathaway, and I mean, who doesn't love Robert De Niro? But in The Intern, it is exactly what I just explained. It's this woman who she created this incredible business online, and this is how old it is. This was like not a common thing. And actually, I think I remember in the movie they were like, "What? You don't try the clothes on?" Or there was some line like that. So this is how old this movie is. But she blew up and she built this incredible business online. And she was working intuitively and she was showing up authentically for her staff and her clients. Like there's a scene where she's on a call with like clients figuring out a problem, and someone says to her, "Oh, you're the CEO. You don't have to do that kind of stuff." And she's like, "I know, but I need to connect with people." And she was doing her business how she was thriving, but there was a lot of outside influence telling her. There's a scene where literally someone says, "We need to hire a CEO because you just sort of did this thing. And it's getting a little out of hand and we don't feel like you can handle it." And she's crying and she says, "So give me CEO lessons." And she starts to go through this really deep and internal struggle from three like very major influences. So she has her own self-doubt and internal limiting beliefs, which I see so often in my clients. It's just that little ugly voice in your head that sort of stops you from moving forward, and it's that limiting space. Then the other one is outside influences. So she has a lot of other people telling her what she should and should not do. And then there's this pressure, right? This timeline pressure of, we have to do it now, we have to do it now, we have to do it now. And I love it because there's this moment where Robert De Niro sits down with her and he tells her all the reasons why she's not, he doesn't say you should do this or you shouldn't do this. He just tells her why she's incredible in what he's seen. And she pauses and she takes ownership of everything that she's built in this business. And she's like, "No, hell yeah, I built this. I did this. Look at where I'm taking this," and starts building to that. And it's just like, I don't know. I feel like I could just stand up and applaud that movie. As cheesy and hokey as it is, it's cute, but like, there's such a powerful message to be said there. And that's, I think, what women should come back to and remind themselves when they don't feel like they're in alignment with their business and they're questioning themselves constantly is, where can I pause? How can I build this to the best version of me and feel really good in this space?
Yeah. And also, like, where am I listening to the outside voices? Where am I listening to the outside influences? I think you and I, like, throughout our careers, because, like, you've been in business as long as I have, like 10, 14 years, like, in that range, like, there are so many times in business where we're like, "Oh, well, in order to charge this amount for weddings, I have to look this way. I have to speak this way. I have to show up this way. In order for me to run a multi-six-figure coaching business, I have to do this specific thing. I have to like, get on these specific podcasts." And it's like, sure, sometimes that can be the strategic aligned thing to do, but you have got to be questioning whether or not it's what you want to build and what you want to do.
1000%. And giving yourself the space and the time to allow your intuition to come in and actually tell you what is meant for you. Because the other thing is too, again, we're women, we're superheroes, we can do it all, but we forget that we don't have to. So let's just slow the heck down and give ourselves some space of, I mentioned pressure of time from that movie and it's like, yeah, let go of this silly, unnecessary pressure of time because time is this construct that doesn't mean anything. You can take as long or as little as you need to be whatever you want to be. So
Yeah.
I think that's a huge thing too, is just when you find yourself in that comparison realm, like you were talking about, another thing, again, take a pause, give yourself the space to really evaluate does this feel good or not?
I think a lot of creatives subconsciously are afraid of having that kind of space because they don't know what the internal voice is going to be saying once it has the space to
Yeah.
speak out. And I know I am definitely guilty of that sometimes where I'll be like, oh, I'm just going to read a book for 6 hours instead of like sitting down with my thoughts and feelings.
Or I'm going to scroll on Instagram and disassociate for several hours and just not allow my internal thoughts to come out.
Yeah, exactly. So, like, if you're looking at having an aligned business, one of the things that you're going to have to get comfortable with is being uncomfortable because you're going to have more space to actually like be intentional and actually slow down and question, is this what I want to be doing? Is this aligned with where I'm going?
Oof, such truth. I mean, you constantly have to be coming back to yourself. And
Yeah.
I love
So,
how you just, oh, sorry.
oh, I was just going to say it's a practice. It's 100% a practice.
It's such a practice. And it's like exactly what you said. You have got to get super comfortable with the fact that that's not comfortable. I mean, you'll get this because you love working out and especially weightlifting. For the people in Aislinn's world, if you don't know this, she is a powerhouse and she loves weightlifting. But it's like when you're lifting weights and you want to build muscle mass, right? It's uncomfortable. It is uncomfortable and the results are incredible and you feel so good about yourself afterwards, but to get through that process, it's a consistent uncomfortableness too. Like you have to choose to consistently put yourself in that space.
Yeah, absolutely. Like this year has been really weird because I'm having hip surgery in about a month from now. So when this podcast comes out, I might actually already have had it. But this year has been so interesting with like I know what I'm capable of with weightlifting, but this year I have not been able to do the things I think I should be able to do because of the
Yeah.
context of my current life. And I think that's like one of the interesting things to think about too with like alignment and like business and stuff is like you might be holding yourself to a standard that the current context of your life cannot compute in the current context. So I think it'd be really cool to talk about like what are the signs of someone who is not living in in an authentic lifestyle.
Yeah, totally. So the first one I think might throw people for a loop, but I always tell my clients and people to pay attention to how you personally are perceiving others' perception of you. What I mean by that is unless that person has come to you directly, then what you are seeing as that person's judgment or perception of you is actually your own internal dialogue and perception of yourself.
Yeah.
So if you're seeing other people's perception as judging you, feeling like you're not standing in your truth, feeling inauthentic, feeling like you're out of place, chances are your internal dialogue is trying to tell you something really deep.
Yeah. And it's not something that people like think about very often. So I really love that you brought that up when it comes to like signs that you're not living an authentic life. If you are looking around you and being like, everyone's judging me, everyone is thinking this specific thing of me. It's like, well, sorry, honey, it's actually you thinking those things about yourself.
And people don't, that's a hard thing to face, right? And so it's easier to put that perception on other people and say, oh, well, they just think that about me. But then once you start taking the ownership for yourself, again, talking about that, you have to face your own internal dialogue. Okay, what am I going to do to change this? And then it's like, oh, now I actually have to put in the steps and the work to do it. But the funny thing is, the hardest part is not the steps and the work. And people don't realize that. Half the time, the hardest part is just facing the internal truth. So I would say that's the first big one. And then the second one, we kind of talked about this, but the constant disassociating, like we mentioned, the reading, listen, I love to read as well. And it's funny because I think I told you this in a friend conversation one time where I was like, oh, I got Kindle on my phone because if I want to scroll, I'll just hop on my book. Which was great because I wasn't scrolling, but then I was just replacing one disassociation with the other. So it was like, okay, I have to actually put in the work now.
You're like, oh no, I have to go look at my thoughts again.
But
Yeah.
it's that space where you are starting to put things off and they start to feel like a really heavy burden. So you're just shutting it down.
I love that you brought up like that there are different signs that you're living in an authentic life. And like, yeah, like if you can pay attention to what you think other people think of you, it's going to give you a lot of information about yourself. And it's going to give you a lot of information about where you might need to pay attention a little bit more and clean some stuff up for yourself.
Absolutely.
So, one of the things I love about your coaching business and like mentorship is that you have different archetypes that people fall into. So, I really want to dig into these. Let's talk about like different self limiting archetypes and like let's define each of these because I think my audience is totally going to resonate with these.
Yes. Oh my gosh, I'm so excited. So this is my brainchild, if you will. And it came from me sitting with multiple clients and multiple friends. And I did a little like self-observant experiment, right? And my friends are like, you're so weird, but they love me. So I started compartmentalizing all my friends into groups. And everyone has these spaces, but some are more prominent than others in each person. And don't worry, I warned them. I was like, you're going to be part of my experiment. So there's 4 self-limiting archetypes that I identified with. And the cool thing about this is it sounds so negative when you hear self-limiting archetype, but the great thing is it's also one of your biggest superpowers. So here are the 4. You have the achiever, the perfectionist, the dreamer, and the good girl. So the achiever is someone who is like super excellent at seeing the steps, compartmentalizing, they're organizing. They're the ones who are doing all the logistics, the checklists, they're packing weeks in advance for the trip. I actually have a friend who comes to mind immediately. When she packs for her trips, I'm going to send this to her because I'm going to call her out because I think she's hysterical. When she packs for her trips, she takes a photograph of herself in the outfit and puts it on a spreadsheet for every single day. So she knows exactly what day, and then she packs her spreadsheet. So she knows exactly what day she's going to pull out of her suitcase. And I
love
love her
that.
for that. I mean, I think we know that you're an achiever.
Yeah, if anyone's listening to this and you're like, wow, that sounds a lot like Aislinn. Yep, probably is.
So that's amazing, right? And that's such a beautiful superpower. But the downside to it, or the dark side, is that it can be harder for them to see a big picture. They can get really caught up in the weeds of what's next, and thrive more on making the checklist, but not see the progress to actually reaching the goal. So
Yeah.
then we also have the perfectionist, who is very similar to the achiever, but slightly different. They are someone who's very detail oriented as well, and they want everything perfected down to a T. They're super great at honing in on those details, but the difference is that they can hold themselves back by actually constantly focusing on perfecting every last detail. So rather than getting in the weeds of a checklist, they're so worried about going for a launch or putting out a new brand or taking a big leap for something because maybe that color in the brand is just slightly off, but I've also changed it 10 times and I really just love the first one and my brain is telling me that it's not perfect yet. It's just really actually your brain holding you back and keeping you safe. And then we have the good girl. And that's someone who's just like super in tune with what others see, think, and feel. They're your friends that you don't even have to tell them something's wrong. They're gonna just intuitively know, and you can lean on them and cry on their shoulder. They're great at understanding client experiences, and they very much put themselves in others' shoes. But a little bit of their dark side is that sometimes that means they're super easily swayed by trying to overly please or worry about what others think. They can also have a deeper tendency to kind of lose their alignment more quickly than any other archetype because they morph into the expectations of others or how others act. So they kind of have that tendency to start soaking in the actions of what other people around them are doing, thinking it's themselves, and then hitting that point of, oh, this doesn't feel like me or feel really good. And then
Yeah.
finally, of course, we have the dreamer. And this is someone who is so brilliant at coming up with awesome ideas, big picture. They're just like an idea generator. They're constantly cranking out thoughts and cool options to go with. You come to them with one idea and they come with 10 ways to make it even bigger, right? But it's hard for them to rein in and kind of focus on the steps to get to that dream. So they might end up having 10 incredible business ideas, but never see it come to light because they don't know how to build the steps or strategy to get there.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. It's interesting how like each one of those I identified a little bit with like each of them. So I'm curious, like for you, like people like fall into these categories. Like, do you identify with all 4 of them or do you see yourself as like one of them specifically?
Totally. So there is a little bit of every archetype inside each of us, but there's usually, whether it be in the situation that you're going through currently or a phase in your life, or sometimes it's an age thing, you could probably end up leaning on one or two more than the other ones. And so these archetypes are also not just solidly stuck where you're at. They're very fluid. I know that when I was about halfway into my business partner, God love her at the time, she was the achiever and I was the dreamer. And I was constantly coming to her with these huge ideas. We actually opened a storefront. Like, it was this brainchild that I was just like, we're doing it. And she was constantly following me, like, all the steps, but all the steps. And for better or worse, I evolved over time. I think I just got a little bit spooked and I lost some of that dreamer, but I've definitely gotten her back, but it was replaced by a very heavy achiever. And so, the thing is too, is finding that happy, beautiful balance between all of them and being able to work within each of those superpowers and not leaning too hard on one. So you start to feel that overtaking you.
Yeah, like one of the things you were talking about with the achiever, which is like what I identify with, is that they get kind of like lost in the weeds. So like you guys will hear me on this podcast. If you're one of my clients, you will hear me say this at some point. Let's take a 30,000-foot view of your business or like this mindset or this situation. And that is me like recognizing that like I will get in the weeds if I don't like try to look at this from a zoned out perspective. So each one of these definitely have like things that help you like break free. And like they're like, even like you were talking about like the good girl. And it was like, empathy is great. Empathy is so good until it's to the point of enmeshment. So enmeshment is where like you make yourself basically invisible by being a chameleon to everyone else around you. That enmeshment is like where you blend in with like either your family or community or friend group or whatever it is to the point of invisibility. So like you might not even know what my needs and wants are because you're in an enmesh environment. That's something that the good girl is going to really struggle with. So I think that's a really great segue into if someone is a specific archetype, we can go through each of these if you want to. What do they need to do to break free?
Oh my gosh, yes. So I'll go through each of the archetypes and kind of explain what I would recommend and how I work with my clients to turn their internal archetype and their internal self-limiting space with that archetype into their superpower. So first and foremost, to be able to find that beautiful balance of all four, I strongly recommend finding your community of all archetypes and building incredible relationships within that community. This is where you're going to find the achiever and the perfectionist helping each other, right? So the perfectionist is going to come in and say, here's all the fine details. And the achiever is going to say, that's great. We've hit it. Let's move on to the next. And the dreamer is going to keep them focused on the end goal while the good girl is coming in and thinking about the client experience the entire time and reminding them of sales funnels and how are we going to sell this, to multiple clients if that's what your goal is, or what does this look like for the clients, or how are they experiencing this as they go through it? And it becomes this really robust, beautiful way to work together and find that awesome balance. But if you're working to build your community or you don't know where to get started, for my achievers, I always say that you can do higher self-work and you can do that through meditations or visualizing walks to realign their work with the bigger picture or goal and constantly reminding themselves of that grand idea of what they're building towards. For perfectionists, I recommend exploring somatic healing. So whether that looks like somatic therapy or just kind of doing your own grounding activities, body moving, journaling, pausing in silence, EFT tapping, but finding ways to identify, but then also work through and release those perfectionist spaces, most of the time that come from anxiety. So for the good girl, I recommend coming back to self. Morning journaling when you first wake up, not opening your phone, right? Not immediately getting on a phone call with mom, not whatever it is that you might do when you first wake up, but just sitting with yourself first and coming back to your authentic voice, your dreams, your goals. Daily self-promoting affirmations as well are super helpful for the good girl to feel self-empowered. And then for dreamers, I recommend building a strategy map. And I walk my clients through exactly the steps of strategy mapping and how to implement it, but taking that vision and that beautiful 30,000-foot view and actually putting in the steps to get there.
I love that. And I think that like you could use that advice from all four of those and like apply it. So if you heard that and you were like, oh, but I'm an achiever, so I don't need to do vision walks, or I'm an achiever, so I don't need to do, what did you say? Somatic therapy. Like You can do all of it. Like you can do
Oh,
the like coming
absolutely.
home to yourself exercises. You can do visualizations. You can do the 30,000 foot view action steps. Like you can do all of it. But like wherever you are, like I want you looking at like, okay, I'm a dreamer. So like, what did she say I need to work on? Okay, she said I need to like look at like building a strategy map. Okay, that's what I'm going to try first before you try some of the other things.
Yes, 1000%. Because again, we have all of that within us, and it's so beneficial to explore all of it.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things I love that you said earlier is that like you can kind of be different things in different seasons. I'm curious for you, have you been all four of these at different points in your life or like were there certain ones that you have been?
Absolutely. So I would say when I was younger and in college, I was very much in high school. I was not a good kid by any standards. I will say I was living what I thought was my authentic truth. I was going through a little bit of a reverse good girl phase where I was morphing into other people's view of how I should be, but totally opposed to my parents. And it steered me in a direction of overcompensating and very much wanting to be a perfectionist because I wanted to put out this different image of myself. So there was just no option or room for failure. And I got very stuck on perfectionist. There was also very heavy good girl of like, okay, I want to now overcompensate and please my parents and make them feel relieved and like they don't have to take care of me or worry about me, right? So I ended up taking a job out of college that I never aligned with it, but no one had to worry about me now, right? And in that career, I had still a lot of perfectionist and I was starting to develop achiever, but then dreamer came in when I started building my wedding business. And I just got all these big grand ideas. And I kind of mentioned this earlier, but I had a business partner and we just grew and grew and grew and it was incredible. But we hit that inevitable point where we grew and we were chasing the strategy afterwards and not realizing like, oh my gosh, how do we build this business? How do we keep up with this? What are we doing? And not really thinking about how I wanted to authentically show up in that business. And so then I reversed altered away from dreamer, went back to achiever. So you can see it kind of ping pongs. You go through all these different phases and seasons of life. And, I think the most incredible, powerful thing you can do for yourself is just identifying when you're in that space and not punishing yourself for being in that space because it's not a bad thing. But the faster you can identify it, the faster you can get through it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think this goes like beautifully back like to the conversation of alignment. Because at any point, if you notice, oh, I'm falling into perfectionism. Oh, I'm falling into like being an achiever. Oh, I'm falling into good girl or dreamer, whatever it is, like you can get yourself back into alignment by noticing where you are and noticing what's coming up for you. Like you were talking about how like you were a dreamer and you were chasing the strategy after the dreams came. Like, okay, well, had we noticed like earlier on, hey, like we don't really have a strategy for this. Like we have like these really big ideas, but we don't have strategy. That right there is the fix. That right there is the moment of like, okay, like I need to like look at this. Another example is like when you were falling into like good girl and like you were falling into like this season of enmeshment with other people's expectations of you. Had you had like this like framework of like these four different archetypes, you might have been able to look at that and been like, okay, I need to come home to myself. I need to come home to what I want. And I need to come home to like the decisions I'm making for my life, not based on other people's expectations. So I love that this framework allows you to just kind of like almost like self-analyze in a very like non-judgy way.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for saying non-judgy because that's what I really want people to get to is there's no judgment in yourself. It's just be at peace with yourself and find acceptance with the decisions you've made and the decisions you can make moving forward.
Yeah, I think that's like one of the limitations that I see sometimes with things like the Enneagram or even like human design or astrology, like all those different things. Like I see people being like, oh, but I'm an Enneagram type 2. So obviously I'm like the worst. And it's like, hey, like every single Enneagram has like the beauty of being human within it. Like we don't have to take that away just because you're like labeling yourself something. So like if you guys do decide like, oh, I want to take the quiz and figure out which of these four archetypes I am, I want you to look at them as all equal. You are a human regardless. You are worthy regardless of whatever you end up being. And also it's seasonal too. Like there might be seasons where you identify as one of these and then the next season you're like, hey, actually identify with this one over here instead.
Absolutely. You brought that up a long time ago, and I thought that was one of the most powerful, beautiful things was, yes, you may be an XYZ Enneagram. Yes, you may be an XYZ, whatever your horoscope is or whatever, right? But that doesn't give you an excuse for stopping yourself. That's not your excuse, right? That's, anyways, I always loved that conversation.
Yeah, I do too. Because I see a lot of people who are like, oh, but I'm this, so I can't X, Y, and Z. And it's like, wow, good job. You've labeled yourself into a corner. Like you've labeled
Oh,
yourself into like limitations. Like why?
mm-hmm,
Why do that? Like, do you
mm-hmm.
really want to get to the end of your life and be like, oh, well, if I hadn't been an Enneagram 2, I might have lived a life I loved. Like, no.
Oof. Wow. I love that.
So you've been coaching for a while now. I know you've had a lot of different types of clients like come through your doors. I'm really curious, like which archetypes do you see the most of?
A lot of who I work with and see the most of are perfectionists and achievers. And that's not uncommon in women business owners because, for better or worse, we still live in a society that is highly masculine educated. So what I mean by that is there's masculine and feminine ways of doing everything and within all of us. And a lot of what we've learned of building businesses and sales tactics and strategy and marketing push has been masculine. And we're sitting in this space of it not feeling aligned and comfortable because there is something inherently beautiful and powerful living in your feminine authority and your feminine intuition and energy. And we're going against the grain with all this stuff that we're reading and telling us how to build these businesses. And to make up for that, fear that we have created in ourselves of, but why doesn't this feel right? And why doesn't this feel aligned? Instead of facing that why and building it aligned, there's an overcompensation. And it looks like perfectionist or it looks like achiever. And so there's a big piece of what I do with my clients of breaking that sort of societal view and breaking that big, icky perfectionist achiever space and working through, okay, but if you got to build this in your own beautiful way, what would that look like? And that's always a fun space when we get there with our clients.
I love that. I would love to hear a little bit more about like your views on like running a feminine authority business versus a masculine authority business and like kind of like if a client came to you and they were like showing signs of running a very masculine business, like what would those signs be? And then how would you help them create a more feminine style business?
Totally. And let me say this too, neither is wrong. And sometimes for a certain type of person, a masculine way might be okay, might feel good and comfortable to that person. And that's great. People who are usually attracted to working with me, we are not. So when they've come to me and it doesn't feel good and it doesn't feel aligned, they're hitting that space of it's successful, but I feel overwhelmed and crushed by my own business. They're probably doing a lot of what I call roller coaster sales. So doing really high, heavy, hot pushes and then having low peaks and then another really hot push and then a low peak. And it's a constantly drive and constantly push and constantly go and constantly get your face out there and push that business card and push that marketing plan and just go, 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 go and never slow down and never stop and hustle, 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 hustle until you die. But feminine business is, again, taking the space to breathe, waking up and journaling on the bigger vision of your business and then having big, beautiful, bold dreams. And then looking at your strategy and saying, is this aligning with building towards that? Knowing that sometimes you may only want to work 25 hours a week and then deciding how you're going to implement the systems in your business to allow you to do that. So it's still strategic. I don't want people to think that when I say feminine, that it's just this, we're dancing in dresses in a field around a fire. If you want to do that for your business too, that's great. I think more power to you. I'll join you. But it's the strategy behind it that's built to this beautiful, intuitive side of you and not the sales push marketing side of things.
Yeah. I love that. And I do believe in a balance between like masculine and feminine when it comes
100%.
to like business. Like I personally believe like you need to have the masculine systems to have the feminine flow. And
1000%.
when you were talking about like the roller coaster of like these really big sales and then no sales and these really big pushes and no pushes, I think a lot of wedding professionals specifically will relate to that. And I want you guys to hear like from someone who like built a business that had the masculine systems for the feminine flow towards the end of my wedding photography career. It does not have to be that way. It does not have to be that way. There's a lot more like lean back energy with feminine businesses that like once you like recognize it and feel it in your business, like you will never want to go back to the push like ever.
No. And it's it's creating the system to give you that space and allow you to do that. I love that. I
Yeah.
love exactly how you mentioned that.
Yeah, absolutely. So, okay, how can people find you? I know that you have FAB. I also know that you have the quiz for the archetypes. Like, what else is going on that people can find you? And, like, what do you have for them?
Yeah, absolutely. So right now I am still taking one-to-one clients. If you want to work together, my Instagram handle is _ the FAB CEO. You can DM me and I will send you details over to work with me directly. There's also the link in my bio there for you to take the self-limiting archetype quiz. And if you take the quiz, it will not only tell you what your archetype is, but you'll also get a full breakdown of what you can expect when you're living within that archetype, how to work through it, how to utilize it as your superpower, and what that sort of means for you. I am revamping and relaunching FAB.
Yay.
So yes, the relaunch of FAB will be happening in January 2026, but I'm opening the waitlist up this fall.
Amazing. And can you just explain what FAB is just so that everyone has that?
Completely. So I love that we sort of ended the questions and conversation with the two sides of this beautiful world, because FAB will be a two-tier system membership. And inside of it, you'll have the mindset side where we talk about all of the limiting archetypes. We talk about embracing your power. We talk about law of attraction and how to hone in on law of attraction. We talk about all these different beautiful ways to refine your mindset and work through those limiting barriers. But then there's also the strategy side, which is the very simple steps that I take my clients through every single time to build a flawless strategy and system in their business to support their dreams and goals. And you can experience both inside the FAB membership, plus a community space where you're not only going to have access to ask me questions, but you also get to rely on and lean on those beautiful women that I was talking about earlier who can be your achiever, perfectionist, dreamer sisters that you can talk about with ideas to and share goals and dreams and help each other and lean on each other. So you have that community built in, ready to go for you.
I love that. And I think community, like, especially when you are working on mindset, is so big because when you start to like look at like different things that you're doing, different patterns and behaviors and systems that you've worked within, it is really helpful to have someone to talk to about those things. So I love that that's part of your system.
Thank you. Yes, it's such a beautiful place when you can have that person who understands that you can lean on.
Yeah. And they're also going to have the same context as you because they're going to have already gone through like the archetypes and know what their archetype is. So they can help you. Like, let's just say like you're a dreamer and like someone else in the community is an achiever and you're like asking a question. The achiever is going to have a completely different set of structures, like mindset structures that they're going to be able to help you with.
1000%.
I love that. Well, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. This was so fun to get to chat with you about all these different things. Again, can you just like quickly let people know where to find you on social media? That way they can connect with you.
Yes. So social media handle is _ the FAB CEO. That's FAB, the FAB CEO. And you can find all my information there.
Amazing. Yay. All right, guys, I will see you on the next episode.